Hello folks, welcome to el canal Chano Jose. Today we got a small video, a simple video about transmission oils or fluids. And there's two basic fluids out there, and some people don't even know what fluid the transmission takes. And I'm just gonna give you basic stuff, nothing advanced, nothing out of this world. So we have this reddish color and this honey color, and I'm going to explain the difference, basic stuff about these two oils. The red one is hydraulic transmission fluid, and this fluid, what it does, just by its name, it creates hydraulic pressure so the transmission works. All the valves, all the little veins and all that get that transmission to flow all these oils so the transmission starts doing its job. These, you gotta make sure when you buy your oil that it says automatic transmission oil and you don't fluid, and you don't get the wrong transmission fluid. You're buying transmission fluid oil, make sure you buy the recommended by the manufacturer, and you just add what it needs, because if you have too low, it's bad. If you have too much, it's bad as well. So you gotta be careful on that. But now, getting back into the basics of the oils or the transmissions, the oil for the manual transmission is different stuff. It's not red, it's this honey color. It's a thick oil. This is not engine oil either. This is gear oil. So this manual transmissions, what they have is a bunch of gears inside. So there's a clutch between the engine and the transmission, and that's when you push the clutch to separate, make a separation between the engine and the transmission. So while the engine is still running, you can shift to the next upper gear or lower gear, and then once you release the clutch, they get back to each other, and it keeps the cycle going. So this oil is for those gears. This oil doesn't create hydraulic pressure, doesn't create any of that stuff. All it does is just lubricates all those gears while they're just spinning inside the transmission, and all it does is just lubricates. That's all it does. And it's not motor oil, because the motor oil burns out quicker. Every 5,000 miles you got to change that oil. This oil can last longer than that, way longer than that. So this is, it looks like engine oil, but it's not engine oil, it's gear oil. So it's made to take long usage. So there's I got two different weights here. I got 80-90 and 75-90, a higher and a lower, just by 5 on the first number. So what that means is the thickness of the oil on the cold start, and then once it heats up, it goes to 90 on the thickness. But those numbers, they're not that far apart. But this oil can be used for manual transmissions. This can be used for conventional differentials, manual transmissions, steering gears, and gearboxes. So for example, your transfer case, your axle, your transmission, and some of the steering gears that don't require hydraulic oil. So you can use these two oils. These oils, all they do is just lubricate. This oil lubricates and creates hydraulic pressure. So there's a big difference between these two oils. So on the automatic transmission, what the automatic transmission does is that the engine is spinning. As you rev up the engine, there's a component that the torque converter, and that torque converter has oil inside. So as it's spinning, it creates hydraulic pressure, and then the transmission is hooked to the engine. So that thing is between those two, the engine and the transmission, and that hydraulic pressure starts creating the car to move on, and then that's when all the gears start shifting, because hydraulic pressure. So it can get really complicated, but the simple thing is the hydraulic pressure, and planetary hydraulic gears works on the transmission, the automatic transmission. So I'm just here to expose the basics on the oils, because we can get into chemicals, additives, and all that stuff, but basic stuff is just, if you're checking under your car for a leak, or you see some oil in there, just look at it. If it's red, if it's honey color, or if it's darkened, or so that way you can get to know your oils. Because if you don't know the color of the oil, and then you have an oil leak on the bottom of the engine, then you want to know what kind of oil that is as well, because it's very important to know if you got a transmission fluid leak or an engine oil leak. And sometimes transfer case oil leak as well, because the transfer case, if you got a 4x4, that might be a different story too. So you want to make sure you know your oils, and then you don't want to add manual transmission oil into your automatic transmission, because they're not the same. This only lubricates. This oil is specific to make hydraulic pressure and lubricate. So this is thinner, and it stays almost the same thickness throughout the process. This oil is just to lubricate, and it's a gear oil for the gears, not for hydraulic pressures. So it's the basics. And like I said, I use all my Tercel and all my anything that has a manual transmission or axles I use, and I never had any issues with my cars. And I just keep checking the levels of the oil, and I just keep adding any if it needs any fluid. You can mix them, there's no problem on that, but I rather go with just one weight, so that way you know what kind of fluid is in there. So don't use hydraulic or automatic transmission on a manual transmission as well, because that can create some problems. And vice versa, if you use manual transmission fluid on an automatic transmission, you can create some serious problems, especially on those newer cars, because this oil travels faster than this oil, and you can clog up some valves or some little openings that this oil will probably don't make it through, and then create and burn out your transmission. So be careful as when you add some oil. So if you're gonna change your oil, or you're gonna add oil, or you just wanna get some transmission oil for your automatic, verify it and make sure what oil the manufacturer requires for that transmission. So before you start getting into going to the auto parts or any place that they sell oil and buy this just any oil, make sure you get the right oil for the transmission, because if that transmission goes bad, you can pay a lot of money just to get it fixed. So be careful about that. So well folks, this is just a little basic information, nothing out of the ordinary. So just get to know your colors of the oils on the transmission fluids, and that way you know and you can tell what kind of transmission fluid or what kind of fluid is underneath the car in case you got a leak. And well folks, if you like this video, give us thumbs up, share it, and we'll see you soon with more videos here en el canal El Chano Jose.